So we had three very different speakers with very different stories, and still there's some lines to draw, as I can see it. And I was also asked to discuss with you in the audience, like, where does this take us? You know, we have taken this lab approach, as Christoph has organized it by the Center for Innovation. And the lab approach includes bringing in the academic perspective and the practical perspectives, and see how we can work on further developing leadership that way. Maybe first I would like to ask you to reflect on some of the stories you heard. Sandra, when hearing your story talking about ambidextrous organizations, is the army, as explained by the last speaker, is that a perfect example of an ambidextrous organization?
Well, you added perfect, so then the answer becomes very difficult, of course.
Yeah, that was the meaning.
I think it's a perfect organization, but it's not a perfect ambidextrous organization, perhaps. But it contains elements of ambidexterity, of course, as you explained to us. During operations, a totally different kind of leadership is needed compared to the bureaucracy of the ministry, of course. And then during operations, I also have noticed that managers on the middle level managers have a huge responsibility in the field, right? And when it comes to risk and to adaptation, then of course in the field you need to respond very quickly to unforeseen circumstances. But on the other hand, I also know from the army that then there are given procedures to react in a certain way. So it's a very specific example, I guess, of ambidexterity here, which cannot just be transposed to other organizations, but is very effective in your context and given your goals and assignments. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to respond to that, or?
I don't know whether this works. I think the context is very important. So the way we operate and the way we lead our people is, of course, within the context of our work. And the work that we do here in the Netherlands is different from the work that we do somewhere abroad, where there is a chaotic situation. That is normally, if it wouldn't have been chaotic, we normally wouldn't have be there. We actually love chaos in that sense, and we love to operate in uncertainty. So that is how we train our people, and that doesn't mean that is a good way to run your organization as a general principle. The context is very important, I think, to understand why we do the things we do. Yes, we have procedures. The procedures that we use are primarily for the situations when you are under a high violent attack, when you have no time to think, actually, then procedures are very helpful given a very high stress situation. But at the same time, minutes before that situation occurs, this platoon leader might be talking to an elder in a village about the economic situation of his village. It's a totally different situation, and it requires different skills and a different approach and a different attitude. Both are happening to him at the same day. So that is why we train all these different situations.
So in fact you say training is very important, and that's what I understood from your plea beforehand. It takes very strict selection criteria and very heavy training over the years. It never ends, right? Yeah. Who in the audience is working in an organization where training of leadership is taken that serious as well? Anyone?
I think so, that within PwC the training of our professionals is key to our success, since we have to adapt directly to changing circumstances. Take, for instance, the audit role we have, or the tax role. If we don't adapt, we are dead meat. It's necessary.
Okay, yeah. Clear. No one else here? Not that serious?
No, not that seriously.
So in what way?
The leadership training is constant in Achmea, and we have various programs for it. you can start very young, but they still train you when you're experienced and older, or the silver age. What did you call it?
The Silver Age, Christoph called it. Yeah, very nice, very nice. Can we conclude that are we underestimating training of leadership in that way? Who is satisfied with the levels that are used in your organizations? Levels of leadership training. One person? Okay. Two?
Well, you should ask who is dissatisfied.
Yeah. That's the next question then. Yeah. So, two people are satisfied. Who is dissatisfied? Who's dissatisfied? Can I ask you why? What makes you dissatisfied?
No, I think I'm working for ASML, and that's a technical, very technical organization with a lot of young people, very smart. And if you see in terms of leadership, most focus is on the technical skills and their background. And to be honest, a lot of the technical guys and girls that are working there do not really have the technical or the leadership skills from their studies or whatever, and just being thrown in there in terms of now you lead a team because you are very smart and you are very professional. And that kind of, I think, improvement in terms of the skills for being a good leader could be improved, definitely.
Okay, so the statement is that you need professionalism. That was also raised by some of the speakers, but on top of that, you need training and leadership as well, right? Yeah. Okay.
Can I add a little bit to that? Because
please.
It's not only about leadership in general that you need to train. The technical parts, as you say, are very important, but what most organizations fail to do is train people in the social emotional skills that are needed for good leadership. And there, we really need to learn from a lot of other organizations that are doing it well. And I was wondering how exactly the Ministry of Defense is training people on that level of social emotional skills, because when people have a stressful situation, they need to work through those emotions. Emotions is a cycle, and you must know how to deal with that. It's also important to understand yourself, your characteristics, the way you deal with situations. Some people might be very upfront in reacting to situations, so sometimes they have to learn to be a little bit more laid back. And so I was wondering how the ministry does that.
Well, I think one of the things that we have learned over the last decades is the way we how do you say, guide people or help people after a mission, for example. If you look the problems that you can read about in the media after Lebanon and after Yugoslavia, where basically we did not enough in terms of the personnel care after the mission, because people are confronted with traumatizing situations. So PTSS is a serious problem, and we have now been working on this particular problem for 15, 20 years. And one of the important things is that before you return from a mission area to the Netherlands, you need to be in between for example, we fly them out of Afghanistan, we bring them to, it doesn't matter actually where, but let's say Crete, put them in a hotel there as a group, and then have discussions amongst them with psychologists, with professionals, trying to make sure that some of the emotions find a way out before people go back to their normal quote-unquote life. Because if you have seen terrible things in a mission, you can tell your wife, your parents, your neighbor once, and then, oh, that's terrible. And then the second time they will say, yeah, okay. And the third time they say, why do I have to hear this time in? And and people they don't have the understanding for the situation, and they sort of don't want to hear it. But our people need some form to get rid of the stress that comes with. So an adaptation program, that's what we call it, has become a very important part of the mission. And it means that you need to be able to talk about it, about your own emotions, about the stress that is in your body. So we train people along those lines as well, apart from the fact that in a mission, there's of course discussions as well amongst the team, as the story of Sergeant Bacchus was about.
And guess in how many organizations, as we are sitting here, is that a normal habit to talk about your feelings and emotions in an agile team or in an IT organization? I don't see that a lot happening. And there are not many organizations, I guess, as far as my experience goes, that really have implemented ways of working to do that in teams.
Yes, I'm working at PwC, and we have assignments all the time, and so different teams as well. And it's very common to discuss at the end of an important day, during the project, as well as at the end, to really talk about the feelings, the development of the persons who are involved in the team. And also about things that maybe weren't that perfect, but to learn from it, Cute mentioned, to really build on further on of your professionalism.
Okay, thank you. Your neighbor would like to say something?
Yes, I would. Hi, I'm Julia. I also work for PwC, and before I worked at the university. And what stands out is that everybody talks about leadership and how emotional IQ is very important, and that sometimes on a personal level people do it, but the leaders are not judged on this aspect. So if you are a leader or a manager of a department or something, it's not taken into account when your performance is being evaluated. So I think something in the system also has to change, so that we take on this emotional component as important, as seen as an important factor.
And what system are you talking about then?
Organizations. So at
organization
PwC,
systems.
it's your engineer, meteor.
One more note by PwC.
Well,
Which comes from the boss.
it's a
Go ahead.
personal question
Yeah.
to Rob. Once in a while in your younger life, you have made this decision to be part of the Navy, wearing a blue suit. In your current role, you are responsible for more than the Navy, also the Air Force, also the Army. How did you adapt your leadership style in your being aligned with the Navy towards other people you have to lead right now? Since that's adapt a little bit on your question, there the leadership is in action.
That's part of the cultural shock that I had in 2003 when I first came to work at the Ministry of Defense. Because I, for the first time, came out of the Navy into a world where there were other Army, Navy, Army, Air Force, Marechaussee, civilians, and basically those groups have different characteristics. And it's always difficult to make generalization of groups, but some of the characteristics within the Army people, Navy people, or Air Force people have to do with the fact that they operate the way they do. For example, the Big Brother experiment is being done by the Navy for the last 525 years. We put together 200 people and send them away for 7 months, and then they do not kill each other, as in the Big Brother series, or try to kill each other, because we actually select people that accept people around them and accept the fact that we are different, but we have to work together. And in an army environment where people are spread around much more over land, there's different ways of how they operate, and it means that the way that I have to work with them and the way I can sort of find their strength much less than their weakness is to look for those things. And sometimes for different jobs, it is better to have a Navy guy or an Army guy or an Air Force guy given those characteristics. So it took time for me to understand that, to learn from it. And now I'm trying to use that in a positive sense to actually get better results. But it is very important to be transparent. That is for me, that is crucial. If somebody thinks in the Army or the Air Force that I am thinking the whole day about the new submarines only, then I'm dead. I mean, in terms of my effectiveness in my present role as the Vice Chief of Defense. So you need to be very transparent in what you think about, the way you write about it, the way you talk about it. Take all the different things into account.
Great, thank you. May I ask you one last question, Wibo? If you would go back to the Consumentenbond, how would you take up your leadership now?
Good question. I would do a lot of things differently, and just to give you one example of what I had to learn. When I became a manager at the Consumentenbond, I had a team of wonderful professionals, and I was totally focused on content. They were doing, it was in the time of all the market liberalization. We had a lot of fun fighting all businesses, the Ziggo and whatever you call it. It was really fun. But I was only focusing on how can we really push them to deliver better for consumers. But I was totally forgetting my team. Even happened like that I was going to marry. And I hadn't told my team, but a picture of it appeared in a newspaper. So the next Monday when I came at the office, that picture was all over the desk, and that was a signal to me of learning, oh, I have really forgotten to invite people to my personal life, because that's an important element of cooperating in a team. So I think that's one crucial lesson that I would do differently nowadays. One other is talking in a team is always taking, we had stand-up meetings with the team on news and publicity every morning. What we didn't do then, but what I would do now is how is everybody doing today? As almost a kind of first question. Checking the resilience, the emotional status of your team and working from there to high performance.
Okay. Thank you very much. Christophe, I suppose it's time to move over, at least looking at the program.
Yes,
correct?
I'm afraid so. Really nice discussion with everyone, but we have to move on. Yeah.
Okay. So Rob Bauer, Sandra Groeneveld, and Wibo Kolen, thank you very much.
Yeah, big applause.